And now, on with the show.
Hello, welcome to Film Fracas. This is our third episode, so strap yourselves in or run away. Either or, it's your call. This is Brett the Rock Johnson coming at you. With me, as always, are Phoenix the Party Zamboni Zarola.
Hello.
Carter the whole effing show Spilliards.
Howdy, howdy.
And Robbie the main man DeShazer.
All right.
So here we are, and we're going to play the Fracas here in a moment.
Episode 3. This is episode 3.
Yes.
Go check out 1 and 2 if you haven't.
Yes, please do.
All right, so last week we did Best Story, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, got voted off in one of the largest upsets in movie history.
Yeah.
Bad story, apparently.
Tolkien, bad writer.
Apparently.
Don't.
I gotta
You
go
could
to.
say it found its way into Mount Doom.
I gotta go to England so I can spit on his grave. Anyway,
Got shot off the moon, as Phoenix put
all
it.
right. So this week the topic is going to be best jaw-dropping moment. And Carter, if you want to explain
Yes.
what exactly this means.
I know what you're all wondering. What does best jaw-dropping moment mean? Well, I'll tell you. So, essentially, because not every movie has some kind of big twist or big, like, kind of gasping moment. Best jaw-dropping moment is really, like, best jaw-dropping moment, like, most, like, cry-inducing, most goosebump, kind of moment. Like, the moment that makes you go, wow, whoa, like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the moment in the movie that just,
Like,
time stands still.
yeah. And how this discussion is going to go, because obviously this is a very kind of what everyone feels about
Subjective
something.
and
It's a very kind
personal.
of subjective and personal, and you can't really be like, well, your feelings about it aren't as good as my feelings about it. That wouldn't really work. So we're going to take an example of, like, The Empire Strikes Back and Back to the Future. So Empire Strikes Back would obviously be, like, the Luke, I am your father bit. And Back to the Future would be like when Marty's dad punches Biff. Those are your two, like, big moments. And so...
I feel like the big moment Back to the Future would be going back in time, but
Whatever.
Like the
We'll
culmination
move
of...
on.
And
We'll move
that's what we would talk about.
That's the kind of thing we would talk about and, like, say, I really love the Empire Strikes Back twist, but Phoenix and Brett don't. I mean, they do, but what if they didn't? Then it would be like,
Don't
well...
speak for me.
We're kind of... Then it would
be
be like...
but don't say that.
We're kind of split on it, and thus it would not be particularly high in the rankings of what we think is the best jaw-dropping moment. So it's really kind of a holistic look of what do we all feel about that instance. So that's how this is going to work.
understood.
Okay. So, how are we going to do this? Who wants to go first?
Let's go first.
I'm not going first this time. I'm just.
Phoenix, want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
I'm not going.
Phoenix, who has never gone first on the show.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that's gone first on this show.
Actually,
and I'm
that's
tired
100%
of being put on the spot, so it's not me.
Phoenix,
All right.
who goes last.
Phoenix goes,
Who's gone last twice?
we'll
We'll now
go
go first this
There we
time.
go.
That's
Reverse
fair.
the order this time.
That's fair. All right. I will start with The Shining, and I will say I'm mixed on where I would put the jaw-dropping moment, but if I had to, I would kind of put the iconic moment of when he's busting into the door with the "Here's Johnny" line and like trying to attack Wendy. Very prevalent in the lexicon of the world. Very tense, exciting, kind of a horror classic moment. And we can talk about that in a second. I'll go for Silence of the Lambs. I would say that's another tricky one, and we can talk about this, but right now my thought would be when Hannibal Lecter calls Clarice at the end and talks about how he has someone over for dinner or someone to eat for dinner. I butchered the line, but you know what I mean. That's like a classic, like interesting horror ending that kind of leaves people guessing, but kind of keeps the vibe going. Yeah. And for Moonlight, I would say the jaw-dropping moment for that one could be when Chiron takes the chair and hits that bully, because that kind of sets everything off for his whole thing and as his adulthood, because that again sends him to jail and kind of goes from him being the shy introverted kid that he was to then becoming a hard crook. That's like the moment that changes his life, and it's very unexpected. I think when you watch it, this kid, you've seen him for like close to an hour at that point, and going from having such like a violent outburst is so out of character, but it's exactly what it does. Exactly what it's supposed to do. It changes
everything.
Changes everything. Changes his outlook. Changes our outlook of him. And it's just it's jaw dropping. It sends you goosebumps. Mm-hmm. And those are my picks.
Your 3 picks.
Okay.
Those are all real good. What do you guys think? I don't.
Okay. Yeah, that Moonlight bit is, yeah, I mean, I had 2 or 3, I guess, quote, jaw-dropping moments, unquote, in that movie. But yeah, that's definitely probably, like, the biggest, strongest one, just because, like, yeah, it is just kind of like, it's so out of character, but also defines the character. So that just works. It's kind of like, oh my God, like, this just happened. And then just, I'm not going to start rambling because it's just, I think Moonlight, that's a good solid moment. Silence of the Lambs, I'm not sure that final phone call is like the best jaw-dropping moment of the, See, now I'm kind of feeling weird about all. Yeah, whatever. Never mind. Sorry, strike that from the record. Like that is a good moment. I think personally, I found but the jaw-dropping moment for me in that movie was when Clarice when like the FBI is outside that random house,
right?
And then Clarice is going to the other place, and like you think the FBI is about to get Buffalo Bill, but no, it's just Clarice, and it's like, oh, they messed up.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
We talked about that last episode.
Yeah, we did.
Such a good.
I feel like that's because that's just kind of like, oh no. Whereas at the end, it's kind of like, oh, he got out. He's gonna go eat that guy that like has wronged him, and it's kind of like, oh, what's gonna happen? It's like, yeah, it's a good horror moment, and it's like it's a good like cliffhanger. But I'm not sure if like, I guess I can't say like it's not a jaw-dropping moment because that's what you chose,
right?
But I feel like it's not as strong as some of the other
moments in the film.
Some of the other moments in the movie.
That's fair. Do we want to, since I'm like kind of the first one going, do we want to say like we're going with the pick that I made, or should we all kind of agree on a moment and then kind of run with that one?
I think we have to go with what you.
We go.
All right,
what you
protagonist.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I will say the Moonlight moment that you picked was not the one that jumped out to me, but after you kind of explain your point on it, I do see it's extremely important, and it just hadn't come to mind, and so I do really think that's a very important moment. Silence of the Lambs, I'm also kind of with you. I'm also with Brett. Like, that is a great little twist they've gotten there, and I even personally love like Hannibal Lecter's introduction because it's such like an iconic like conversation, that whole bit.
Leading up to him, lunching at her.
Yeah, and the way he's just like standing there when she walks up and sees him, it's so chilling.
Phenomenal. But the moment you put forward at the very end, I also really love, because at that point in the movie, like they've beaten Buffalo Bill, like Clarice is getting, she gets her badge and she's being commended. And it's all this like happy, like, yes, we won, it's great, we won, it's fantastic. But then she gets the call. And it's Hannibal Lecter, and he's like, I'm still out here. I'll come for you, like, I'll come for everyone. You haven't won, kind of thing.
Right.
And so it very much brings the whole movie back down to, like, this kind of, it's almost bone-chilling, kind of, his conversation.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, no. So, and The Shining is, I mean, it's iconic, like you said. That one's, it's hard to beat, because here's Johnny's, like, that's the moment. That or The Elevator Full of Blood. Because it's just so visually striking. Like, I don't necessarily know that it's important to the movie, but man, does it stick with you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not off to a good start here, but I actually,
no
I actually had a different moment from The Shining. My moment from The Shining was when Wendy sees the typewriter and she starts scrolling through it, and you just see it's like all just like the bizarre patterns and everything. You're just kind of like, oh my God, this guy has totally lost it. Like the fact that he like made the conscious like effort and decision to like go through and type all of that in those bizarre ways like he did, and he's just kind of like, hey Wendy, and it's like, oh, this is no good. Like the here's Johnny moment is like, yeah, it's great, it's super iconic, but I feel like it's more of like just iconic. Whereas kind of like Here's Johnny was kind of like, oh, like that's like the cover of the DVD box art. That's the line that everybody remembers. That's the one that's been like the parodied the most. Like, yeah, it's iconic, but it's like at that point we already know that he's evil. We already know that he's gone crazy, and I feel like it's kind of just wound up as just like the quote of the movie rather than like a moment that like kind of like defines the movie. But again, like if that's your moment, then like I can't take that away from you.
Right. Yeah.
And again also like. It's not a bad moment because, like, yeah, it's iconic. It's great. Everybody loves it. I'm just saying, for me personally. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
No, you're good.
Yeah. You want to go, Robbie?
Yeah. So I think you've got 3 solid picks. Just gonna start with The Shining, which is what we were just talking about. Yeah, I thought about the typewriter scene, like seeing that, and it's because I think the film presents, you're kind of seeing everything happen at once, so you're not quite sure how crazy Jack is till that moment, and that's your jaw hits the floor as you realize, oh shit, everyone's in trouble. Like this has gone farther than any of us even thought. But Here's Johnny, iconic. I mean, also a jaw-dropping moment. I don't know if we should necessarily take into account that like the amount of time that's passed and thinking about it, now necessarily, even if it's become iconic and, oh, that's the quote of the movie, like that, I don't know if that counts into whether or not it's more or less of a jaw-dropping moment now. Other than Clarice getting that call is really good. It's a really dark punctuation to the movie. Mm-hmm. And it leaves you kind of with a pit in your stomach as you, watch the credits at the end. And other than that, Moonlight has a really good one. That's another one where you watch and you're like, it's one where you see it and you're like, everything's changed. This dynamic is different now.
Right. And to kind of go back to the Silence of the Lambs one, because I do see the points that are being made about how it's maybe for the Silence of the Lambs one, how it's maybe not the most striking of the scene. Because I was thinking through some other parts that could be more chilling, but I just love I love the ending of The Shining because it's kind of an emphasis on like they've succeeded, but at what cost? Because now with like you go through it and you kind of think that Clarice is trying her best to use Hannibal Lecter, when in that moment is also like, yeah, well the relationship is mutual. He used her to like get himself out, and so now you think, we got the serial killer that we were going after, but we might have just let out someone worse, and we don't know what we've done, and it's kind of like a dark, twisted ending. And then to go back to The Shining one, which, again, I do see y'all's point on that one as well. I was also thinking the typewriter one, but I went with the Here's Johnny one because I just think it's so visceral and it stays with you. Mm-hmm. Like, just seeing the axe come through the door and like the cower in fear, like, you really kind of feel the tenseness of that moment of like, this guy has lost it. Like, he is now at the point where he is willing to like chop his family up to bits. Like, now he's 110% gone. And this is it. It's just a real kind of insanity. Like, just the line, Here's Johnny, kind of makes him like not even a person anymore. He's just like a sadistic killer. He's gone from being just like a father with some issues to being just maniacal and insane. And I just think it's such like a wonderful like and such a scary kind of look into what he's become. And yeah, those are my picks. I don't know if we have more to talk about with it. Otherwise, we can move on.
I don't have too much more to add to it.
No.
You want to go? All right, yeah. Okay. Robbie, go for it.
All right. We're just going to go down my list. Yeah. I want you to think back to 2008 when you first saw Iron Man. And there's a reason I'm like, put yourself in the mindset of the first time you saw it. Yeah. Remember, if you're a comic fan or not, there was a lot of people that were like, I don't know if Iron Man's going to make for a great movie. Not a lot of people know who Iron Man is. And I want you to think, too, the introduction, the first, that kind of prototype of the suit that he uses to escape from the compound at the very beginning. And that first shot where you see him come out, guns blazing, all that whole fight scene, that whole just coming out all the way up to, explosions and Iron Man playing in the background, and you're like, this is it. And you feel that you went from, I don't know if I wanted to see an Iron Man movie to, hell yeah, I love Iron Man in, 2 seconds. And my jaw was on the floor. I remember just being ecstatic, jumping in my seat, wanting more. And the rest of the movie gave me more from there on out. I'm going to talk about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, since that's another pretty easy one. Just the huge jump scare with Judge Doom turning into Toon as he, turns to look at you. His eyes bug out, and child me was like, nah, I don't like this. I understand. It's a moment that takes a twist takes the twist of Judge Doom being not just, this cold-blooded, power-hungry judge and turns him into this dark villain. And it's such a poignant moment. And it also really, for everyone watching, regardless of age, sums up, this is the bad guy. This is the big boss. So that's why I think that's the biggest jaw-dropping moment from there. And now, I want to talk about The Big Lebowski, which... I feel like I keep having to defend this movie because it's so unconventional in a lot of these ways. And I think that the jaw-dropping moment, I want to kind of define what I mean by jaw-dropping. And that is, this movie is so absurd, and you think about it, you're getting through the movie and you're getting used to kind of the logic of this world. But I think everyone's just not prepared for Donnie's funeral and his eulogy. So, obviously he's given a, very strange, meandering eulogy that, references Vietnam and everything. And then he's in a coffee can, and he's taken and shook off the mountain where the wind blows it back into the dude's face. And you sit there and you go, oh, you're just left slack-jawed going, wow, I can't believe that's what they did with their friend's remains, That he blew them back into the dude's face and beard and mouth, and it's gross because it's a dude's ashes. It's disrespectful to their good friend Donnie, who they kind of spend the whole film kind of shitting on, and you're like, I didn't think they could go lower, but then and then he's dead, and then shaken out of a coffee can. Because they don't want to pay for an urn. Yeah. So, my jaw hits the floor. It's a little different than an overwhelming moment, but I think it's a good.
Yeah, I think that The Big Lebowski is a bit of an uphill battle here. I think you picked a good moment. I don't necessarily know if that was jaw dropping as much as it was just like, oh man. Iron Man, you picked an interesting moment because I wasn't expecting that, and I think that that's a solid point that first entrance of him. When I think of it, I think of the jaw-dropping moment being when Obadiah Stane turns the thing on and he's paralyzed.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Takes the chest piece out.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh shit, like this is the end?
It's because he knew oh, he's working with the bad guys, but it's like, oh, but he's literally going to kill his best friend and business partner.
Yeah, and that's a big moment. So I'm kind of back and forth on that. I'm like, I don't know, but you do have a very good point with that, and the Roger Rabbit one, obviously. I think that's everyone kind of jumped out of their seat a little bit when the eyes bug out. And you're like, oh no. And then his voice changes. And he's like screaming at you.
Yeah, he goes full tune.
Like terrifying.
Terrifying.
Oh my gosh.
Young me was having none of it. Yeah, and I thought a lot about what moment I was going to choose for Iron Man. And I think remembering the first time I saw it, I was more overwhelmed with emotion in that first moment, seeing, Tony in the prototype suit getting out of there. And you're like, what else is going to come? Because you see how evil Obadiah Stane is, but you're like, but you kind of know, it being a superhero movie, you're like, well, he's going to find a way out of this. And that's kind of what I came back to, was the idea that triumph versus, oh, how's he going to get out of this one?
Yeah.
Not that it's quite that. It's a much darker moment than he's in a pickle, but like at the same time,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of tension that's lost because there's still time left in the movie. There's still the superhero's gonna triumph. You looked like you were gonna make a point, so y'all were like, Brett's gonna go.
The Phoenix. Okay, so with Iron Man, as I just said, the Jar Jar moment for me was when he paralyzes him, and it's interesting how you say it's kind of like, like it is a superhero movie, so he's gonna get out of it. But then it's kind of like, it is a superhero movie, so he needs to start somewhere. So he's going to have that big suit of armor, and you go through the whole big show of making it. And so it's like, you're not going to have this big build up just to be like, oh no, my suit didn't work or something. And it's like, then you could also say the same thing of like when he gets like the real armor and he busts that out and goes to that ambiguous Middle East country to fight everybody. It's like, oh, like Iron Man's back and he's better than he was 15 minutes ago.
Right.
And so it's like, but I feel it's like, and Obadiah Stane's evil, but it's like he's going to kill this guy that he has like worked with like his entire life and has like helped him through like the death of his father and his family. But like, and it's just kind of like in almost an instant, he's just kind of like, no, I don't care about any of that. I'm going to kill you. And then it's like, you say it's like, oh, like I'm in a pickle this time, but except it is like, there's just so much more like to it than that.
I was not trying to say that it is like that. I was like saying,
okay, that's
my argument was I was a little too reductionist on that. Was what I was saying. Is that
okay.
like, yes, it has some weight to it, but I think that just when I was thinking about multiple moments in the film, I think I was more overwhelmed with emotion the first time.
I get that. Like that's a great scene. I love that. But to me, that was just kind of like, oh, here's one of your action sequences for your superhero movie, since every superhero movie has their handful of action sequences.
That's totally fair.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Roger Rabbit, that's I can't disagree because, that seems very unnerving. But for me, I was kind of like, okay, like, I knew Judge Doom was a bad guy, and I knew he was going to be, like, the bad guy at the end. Oh, he's a toon. Oh, that's creepy. But for it's a great scene. But for me, the jaw-dropping moment, and this is entirely personally me, was when Eddie takes the pictures of Jessica and the other guy playing patty cake, and you hear him just off screen. He's like, patty cake, and I was like, oh. Then it's actually them playing patty cake, and Roger's like, patty cake. I could not stop laughing first time I saw that, because I'm like, oh my god, like this is the best like noir story I have ever seen. I was just like, that was just too good.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Once again, there's a lot of moments in that film.
Yeah.
And the reason I chose that one is I think it was cross-generational there. It wasn't a moment that was just for the adults. It wasn't a moment that was just for the kids.
I got you.
It was a jaw-dropping moment
but
across the board.
Okay, I'm gonna finish up here real quick. I actually think that moment from The Big Lebowski is actually like pretty weak. I know this whole podcast I've just been totally dumping on The Big Lebowski, but it's just kind of like, oh, like Donnie died, like that was out of nowhere, and it was like, okay, yeah, like it's jaw dropping, but for me it was more of kind of like my jaw opened and I was like, okay, sure, I guess, like this movie is nihilistic, so he dies. So I was just a little more of like just kind of like confused, and I was like, this seems kind of unnecessary more than anything, rather than being kind of like, oh, like that's so terrible, like this is all happening. But I feel like that moment from The Big Lebowski just isn't that strong. Yeah,
well, in a movie that is so nihilistic, there are big things that happen, but that's the one where I was like, oh, it's so nihilistic that it's willing to, dump a dead guy's ashes on your, dump the best friend's ashes on the main character.
Yeah, whereas I was just kind of like, oh, like this is just kind of like yeah, I get nihilism and all that, but this is just kind of like, this doesn't serve any purpose other than just being like, hey, look how nihilistic. Remember how this movie's about nihilism? And so I was just kind of like, okay, this just seemed kind of unnecessary.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. Is different scenes affect people differently, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I think is so interesting about this topic, is because it's so heavily dependent on the moments we pick. And I actually was like, oh, Robbie's got a great moment to pick with The Big Lebowski, but you didn't pick it. And so I was going to pick the dream sequence with, like, the stairs that are black and white and, like, the legs going with the bowling alley.
Like the big musical number
the big
and everything.
I was like, that seems wild. Like,
it's a great sequence. And once again, I think, I just chose a different moment for a different reason.
Yeah, and I think that one is, like, for me at least, so jaw dropping because it's like we're watching such like a kind of meandering like regular movie, and then we get into something like so bizarre and out there, and we're like, what the fuck is happening? But it's so great, like it's so interesting and so much fun. That I would have personally went with that one. The moment you pick it is good, but I don't know if I would even consider it my jaw dropping. I wouldn't consider my jaw dropping of the movie, and comparing it with some of the others, I can kind of see Brett's point on how it's a little bit more weak, because it's more like based on like jokes and like the absurdity of these characters, but it also happens at like the end when we kind of know how absurd they are. So I don't know.
That was a big point. It was like, we know this movie's nihilistic. We get that, and so it just kind of seemed unnecessary.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say my jaws dropped. I would say it's really funny. Like I laugh during that scene when he like throw the ashes and like the he references Vietnam in the fucking eulogy or whatever. Like I think that's hilarious, but I don't know if I would necessarily say my jaws dropped for that.
Yeah. My reason for that, of course, like I said, is like you think it's going to one place and it goes even lower than you would think it goes.
Right, yeah. And I can see that point too. I don't hate that moment. I think it's a great moment, but it wasn't the one that I was thinking of. For Iron Man, I do like the moment you picked. When you were setting it up, I was actually thinking you were going to pick the moment at the very end when he says he is Iron Man. Because,
another good one.
Because I thought that was
good too.
I was thinking that was interesting, especially the way you were setting up with going back then, because that was at a time when like not a lot of superheroes like had their real identity and their superhero identity in the public eye, and so that was like pretty interesting. And I like, because it was like Spider-Man and Batman and all those like superheroes where they really kept the double identity thing going. That I remember watching that and being like, oh shit, he left. You know, he revealed it to himself. Like, what does that mean for the future? Or whatever. Like we're gonna see a movie where they deal with that. And yeah, I just the idea of a character not having a double identity in a superhero was so foreign at the time that I thought it was really, really interesting, and it surprised me like first seeing it. But just talking about this right now, I thought of like another moment that is probably jaw dropping, and it's one that involves Tex, because it's the first time we see Iron Man will return in Marvel's The Avengers, which was insane at the time. We didn't even know like what that, or like we didn't know what that meant. We didn't know that it was going to be this, what it led to with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's the whole Nick Fury scene in that text at the end is like so iconic now that I did like it just crossed my mind, but that's also a pretty big moment as well.
It's a movie full of jaw-dropping moments.
Yeah, and then going to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I think you picked the biggest moment of that one. I think the Judge Doom turning into the Toon scene is so crazy but so good. And like you said, like with your child self being like, nah, I felt the same. I was very much like, get this away from me now. I don't like this at all.
I'm not here for this.
Yeah. And that moment is pretty solid. Circling back, though, I think it's possible that, the Big Lebowski one seems like a troubling and kind of polarizing one here.
Right.
At the moment. We still have to go to other movies, but...
I will say, we talked
striking.
about this having a reality TV base to it almost. The Big Lebowski seeming like that character that, like, the person on a reality show who skates by every week, and it's like... Nobody likes this game.
Yeah.
They're the mean one that, like, they keep on for the drama, but, like, maybe this will be its week.
Yeah. And I feel...
It's such a good movie, and I think we all agree it's a fantastic movie.
I feel so terrible that it's on the chopping block every episode so far.
But except, like, it isn't.
Well, it's always talked about as one that we think it should be called or whatever, but... Yeah, it's
Has it
another
hap-
one that it has some problems in this one, I think. But you can say more on that, or we can move on. Or
No, I think I
you've
think
pleaded
this
enough.
might be the week, but who
So-
knows what happens?
Who knows?
So coming around to my movies, neither of mine are terribly jaw-dropping. They're kind of more like goosebump-inducing, kind of. In The Princess Bride, it's definitely got to be at the end, Inigo Montoya fighting the six-fingered man. Like, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And he keeps fighting him, and he stabs him, and he keeps going. He gets back up. He keeps going. He yells at, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And he does the whole fight, and he beats him. And that whole scene, like, still when I watch it, I get goosebumps. I think it's kind of the culmination of that entire character. And it's a great moment. In Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade, how long do y'all want to define moment? You'll have like a time limit on moment.
I feel like between
If
Phoenix
you have to
and
ask that
Ferrari,
question, you don't want to know the answer.
yeah,
I would say a scene at max.
like a sequence.
It's
It's not like a month. It's like the end when he's facing those last three challenges. So like walking across, like spelling out Jehovah, the leap of faith.
Jehovah starts with an
I.
Jay.
Exactly. And then walking across the chasm, and then picking the Holy Grail.
I think I'm gonna say that's a little too long.
'Cause
for
That's a
the
jaw-dropping
moment.
sequence.
Well, because the whole
Yeah.
sequence is like it's only like 10 minutes maybe, to when he gets into the Grail room.
Well,
But
I
it's
mean,
like I don't know how.
But between the other picks here,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a little
Little
too
long.
long.
You could pick one of those.
Yeah,
challenges.
I'll go with the last one, the Grail, because you have Walter Donovan, who's evil Nazi, comes in and is like, well, clearly I can do this, and the what's her face Elsa, he's like, I know what to do. You pick it out, and so she looks around and finds this very elaborate cup, and he drinks it, and it's just that great. Yeah, he's like, of course, only the best, for the cup of Christ, and he drinks it and dies, and you have that great line of the night. He chose poorly. And then Indy goes in, and you're like, you have the tensions on Indy now, because, his dad is dying, and he's like, I got to do this to save him, but he also just watched this guy die, so that you really feel the tension in that moment of, like, Indy has to pick the right one now. And he goes in there, and he looks, and it's a real great moment, because the shot is on this pretty elaborate one, and he sticks his hand behind it and grabs what ends up being the Grail, because this is the cup of a carpenter, is what he says, and it's a great moment, because it's very much like at this point he's already done the other challenges. He's had to take a leap of faith. He's had to kneel and do all these things, and so in that kind of final moment, you have all the tension has kind of culminated, and he picks the right cup and is able to run back out and save his father.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good moment.
It's interesting you picked that, because I thought, given the last episode, you were going to pick when he drops the Grail, because we talked. Well, because I think that's also a pretty important moment too, because that also kind of establishes his whole like this is one where he didn't win or something, and it's pretty important.
I mean, he doesn't win in any of them.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Because the government takes the Ark of the Covenant, and the city keeps the stones.
Yeah.
The Temple of Doom.
Yeah, I guess that is true. This is just yeah, no, I do like your pick though. I think the whole getting the Grail at the end is like more iconic, I guess, and more interesting, because the dropping the Grail is just like he lost, but I think like when he actually grabs it and like gets it with like the fake one, that feels very Indiana Jones to me. Like it's like the classic, like he outsmarted this weird,
He
like
outsmarted the Nazis.
Yes, he
did.
outsmarted the Nazis. Yet again. So I think that's a good pick. Princess Bride one is pretty good as well. I do agree that yours are very like goosebumpy and not so much like whoa, but more like fun and like they're exciting and kind of interesting to watch, and just good moments to remember by. And yeah, I think they're decent picks. Decent.
I actually was gonna pick a different moment for the Princess Bride, except it comes right before the whole fight sequence when Inigo's like finally like confronted the guy and he's like, "Hello, you killed my father. Prepare to die." And you see the guy like grab his sword and then just turn tail and
Run
take
away.
off.
That's
Like,
a great moment.
I'm like, oh my god, like because I feel like just everything just comes together in that moment because like this is what Inigo's been fighting for his entire life. He got beat by Wesley and he's like, oh no, and then like he gets drunk and he's kind of like, oh, I'm defeated, and then it's like, no, he gets back up there and he's like, okay, like let's go do this. He's there, you see the six-fingered man who that's him, right? The six-fingered, yeah, okay. And it's like you see this guy, it's like, oh, this guy's the worst, he's awful, man, go get him. Inigo, and then he just turns tail and it's like, excuse me. And it's like, yeah, that fight scene's great, but I would take the moment just before the fight scene. It's kind of like, but that's just me personally.
And they also, I mean, they kind of work together.
Like, yeah, they do very well work together. I'm just saying, yeah, but yeah, that fight scene's pretty good. And like Inigo, like he's got the dagger thrown into him. And he's just kind of like, "Hello, my name." And the guy's like, "Stop saying that." Like yeah, it's pretty solid. Yeah, Last Crusade. Yeah, that's a pretty solid bit too. Just like, yeah, outsmarting the Nazis. Like, yeah, this is the cup of a carpenter. It's like, woo, yeah, there's a brain in that head of his. And it's like, yeah, it's just, yeah, he beats the Nazis, he gets the right thing, and he gets to live forever. So yeah, it's just, yeah, I feel like, yeah, I can't really complain about your two picks. I was thinking with like kind of the same along with Phoenix earlier. It's kind of like maybe the moment where he drops the Grail, but then I'm like, except like, yeah, the Ark of the Covenant gets shipped off somewhere, and so I'm kind of like, yeah, like this, yeah, that's probably like the biggest point in the movie aside from Sean Connery getting shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I yeah, seems solid to me. Like even like, yeah, I need to watch The Princess Bride again because I'm like, yeah, like these are good bits. These are good moments. Why didn't I like this movie? Oh, because I was in middle school.
Yeah.
We have bad opinions when we're in middle school.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, your two bits are great. I will say I had thought of a different moment from the other ones for Last Crusade, which is my job. You know, it's always such a cool, breathtaking moment when he does the leap of faith to hit the.
Yeah.
Which is why I get that whole sequence.
That whole sequence is like each challenge he's having to, because even like, because the kneel, he kneels and like dodges the blades, and that's fine. That's standard Indiana Jones going through a temple. And then, but then you have like what is essentially a scholarly challenge, and he's a professor, and he gets it wrong. He's like, wait, no, Jehovah begins with an I.
And then it just immediately cuts to him looking at the J, and he just goes, J? It's like, oh no.
Jehovah begins. He's like getting his foot out
He's
of
like,
it.
yeah, he gets that. Oh, that's right, Jehovah begins with an I.
Who gave you your teaching degree?
Oh, Sean.
But yeah, because that's the
Mr.
moment.
Connery.
The moment that sticks with me so much. And we'll go into a little bit of my personal background there. My mother used to teach a Sunday school lesson when we were growing up that was where she would show that clip and it would be about a leap of faith or whatever. And I mean, but that is, and that may contribute to why that moment sticks with me so much. But I think you chose, I mean, a really good moment. It's hard to argue, that last 30 minutes of the movie is nonstop. So, you know.
Well, you really couldn't have gone wrong picking any moment in that whole sequence.
Other than Neil. Neil was a little...
Yes, standard, going through temple.
And then with Princess Bride, yeah, you chose a goosebump-inducing moment. The only reason I would say it would be weak in comparison to any of the other ones is because it's goosebump-inducing rather than, like, awe-inspiring. Like, which, that's...
It's just different.
It's the hand you're dealt there. You have to deal...
Because not every movie has some kind of...
Oh, for sure. So, but I don't have much more to add to that.
Yeah, I think your picks are super solid.
Yeah, decent picks. No real argument against them.
Oh boy. Okay, this is one of the hardest things I've probably ever had to do in my life. So, God, because Lilo and Stitch and RoboCop, there's just, oh my God, there are so many great moments in both of those movies. As I'm saying this, I still don't know what I'm going to pick.
Play jazz. Just play jazz. Go with your.
You can't play jazz
Anyway.
anymore. La La Land's gone.
Oh shit!
That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Spoiled the first
Anywho.
episode.
Jazz died.
For Lilo and Stitch, the jaw-dropping moment I'm gonna pick is when Nani is saying goodbye to Lilo, and they're there in the hammock with the flowers, and she's singing "Aloha Oi," and it's just kind of like Lilo doesn't like fully like know what's going to happen, but just like it's like, oh my god, like they've spent like it's just kind of like they're gonna get torn apart in the morning. Lilo's gonna be thrown in, like into an even worse world than she already is. Nani's life is gonna be torn apart, and meanwhile, like Stitch is just kind of like, oh, like I'm kind of responsible for hurting this person that I'm learning to care about, and it's just like I don't cry at movies, regardless of whatever they are. The only movies that have ever made me cry are Lilo and Stitch, and the short film Bear Story, and the finale of the TV show Gravity Falls. Those are the only pieces of media that I've ever cried to, and it's just kind of like, God, like that. So that moment from Lilo and Stitch, because it's like like probably one of the most serious and heart-filled moments in any animated movie ever, and just like it shows like, hey, things might not have a happy ending. I mean, yeah, they go on to have one, but there in the moment, it's just kind of like there's not a dry eye in the house.
Right.
And then for RoboCop, oh God, I've been thinking long and hard about this one, but I'm going to choose. See, God, sorry guys, I can't force myself to pick one.
If you didn't know, this is Brett's favorite movie.
RoboCop and Lilo and Stitch are my two favorite movies of all time.
Go with your heart. Go with your heart.
Listen to your heart.
Okay, but the moment from RoboCop I'm going to choose is after the whole like factory warehouse shootout, when he's got Clarence Boddicker there one-on-one. He knows like, this is the man who murdered me. This is like, I have him. He is at my mercy. I can like get justice. And he's there reading him his Miranda rights and just throwing him through panes of glass. You're like, get him, like justice for Alex Murphy, justice for RoboCop. And Clarence Boddicker, like the head bad guy, he's there just like scrambling. Like you see him just totally deconstructed at his basest. He's just scared. He's like I know I work for these other guys. Like I work for the higher ups. And then like RoboCop's there about to kill him. He's like, OCP owns the cops. Like, you're a cop. And you just see RoboCop, and you just see like the prime directive, like uphold the law. And you just see his face just like of pure anger just melt away. He's just kind of like, yeah, I am a cop. And then he takes him in rather than getting vengeance. And it's like, oh my God, like it's like, oh, like he is a cop. He knows what he has to do, even though like that is not what he wants to do. And it's like, he knows he's going to get justice the proper way. And it's just kind of like, God, like I get chills every time you see that. I wanted to choose the scene where Alex Murphy gets blown away, but that's a little more shocking than jaw dropping.
Honestly, I kind of laughed a little bit because of how like over the top it is when he gets blown to pieces.
And that's kind of the point, because as everyone knows, RoboCop is a satire. But yeah, my jaw dropping moment is when he doesn't kill Clarence Boddicker there after the factory fight.
I was thinking when he gets shot up to bits part. I really love that moment a lot. When he just gets
so do I.
Eviscerated.
It's a great scene.
Bullets.
Well, he shoots him and there's like his arm's gone.
Like his arm is blown up. Just like, you're just like, give the man a hand. Like, yeah.
But I think the moment you went with is pretty solid.
It's a good
it's a great moment for, like you said, for his character. And
I feel like it's just got character complexity on both ends of it, and just
it has so much emotional weight.
Oh yeah, like that too.
Yeah,
and just the music that's going on is just kind of like, oh gosh, just
yeah. And RoboCop is riddled with a bunch of moments, like you were saying. I don't think as much as Lilo and Stitch, but I think the one you picked for Lilo and Stitch is a good moment as well. It's a heartfelt moment, and a really I don't know, it really like hurts to watch too. And Disney's really good at that kind of stuff, and that's definitely like a pretty strong one, even by their standards.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you picked two solid moments for these things. And the RoboCop one too.
Cool.
Yeah, that Lilo and Stitch moment. It really comes together, especially with the weight of the whole story, because you kind of it sets in on you. You're like, damn, like these girls have been through some shit together. Like they lost their parents. Like they're scrambling to get by at this point. Like, and
Lilo thought she finally found a friend, but no.
And it really hits her. It hits the whole audience all at the same time. And everything kind of swells up inside you, and you're like, I don't know if things are gonna be okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
And as for RoboCop, I mean, we all just talked about it. It has a lot of emotional weight. It's such a good moment. I mean, I don't know what else I can say about it.
I think that RoboCop, you picked an excellent moment. That was kind of what I was envisioning, and kind of the very end when he's just like, Murphy.
What's your name, son? Murphy. It's like,
yeah, you're very much like,
he's a human. Yeah. He's back, baby.
That one's more like gratifying than it is like moving.
Yeah.
I think you picked a good moment. With Lilo and Stitch, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of moments, because even I was like, oh, you could do that one, or you could do this one. And the one you picked, I think, is the most like essential, like go-to. I almost was jokingly like, the bit where he turns into a record player. That to me, it's jaw opening. It's for Stitch at least.
It's so
Jaw forcing him.
I would pick, if you had picked it would be my winner for the week.
I think it's pretty great. But yeah, no, both of those are real good.
Cool.
Yeah. I think you in particular did a good job at picking good moments in your movies, because I think some of us are like arguing other moments in ours, but I think with yours we're like, we would have kind of gone with the same one.
Cool.
For the most part.
Or RoboCop, where we were like, there are two equally great choices for different reasons.
But I think the one you went with is like the more appropriate for the topic we're talking about. Like the blowing him up and like shooting him to bits one is like great, but it's not as like complex and not as interesting as the one that you just said.
It's not as deep.
Yeah.
It's not that deep, fam.
So
now we've got all our picks out on the table.
On the table, shall we pick everyone's winner of the week?
Our winners for the week.
Yo, I'm scared.
Let's just go in the order we presented our arguments. I guess Phoenix, present your winner.
My winner for the week. Oh, all right. Let's see. For jaw-dropping moment, I was thinking this over when everyone was giving their picks.
Just real quick, sorry. Are we allowed to pick our own movies, or do we want to pick other people's?
You pick your own.
Okay.
Last week's episode, I
I
was scared to pick Who Framed Roger Rabbit for
story.
I just wanted to clarify. All of you guys went along with it, and I was like, oh, well, I should have picked this.
Yes, I did choose the best one.
Thank you.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that's no problem. So I was thinking this over, and I kind of feel weird about picking my own pick, because I did want to like go through everybody's and like kind of highlight the ones that y'all picked, because they all did have like great choices. But I know if I'm being true to myself, I gotta pick the Shining's Here Just Johnny scene. Like I love it. I think it's iconic. I think it is so insane and so terrifying to watch, and it is so resembling of that character Jack Torrance. I think in terms of just like how it looks with like his face in the door and stuff, like it is framed in such an interesting way, and like it's more complex than it leads on to be. Like it's not just someone busting in the door. It's like it's more artistic and thought out than that. And I really enjoy it a lot. So I'm gonna go with that.
All right, cool. My winner for this week. I'm also gonna pick one of my own. I'm going with Iron Man. It's such a triumphant moment for me. Like talking about it, just I still felt some of that emotion from when I was a kid seeing Iron Man for the first time. And it's, when I think about it in the greater context of the film, it's only a taste of what's to come, but it leaves you wanting so much more, and that's why I'm going to pick Iron Man. It's a moment, like, not wanting more and, like, needing...
I was going to be like, did you not want him to escape the combat?
No, you want him to escape...
No, I'm just having some fun. Yeah.
He escapes, and you're like, oh, hell yeah.
Get captured again.
So
Do it again.
So, my winner this week, and I don't want to heard about this because we had a lot of good ones.
I do think we did.
a lot of good ones.
The one that I had not thought about, but the more I think about over the course of this conversation, the more I like, is actually, Phoenix, one of yours. Silence of the Lambs. When you picked the bit with the phone call at the end, I hadn't really thought about it in that way, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yes, it really is good, because it kind of brings the whole movie full circle, and it does very much kind of leave it on a very ominous, dark note for a movie that had, up to that point, had been kind of triumphant, and then you're like, oh no. And it's like, it's open-ended in the way that, like, you think they'll do a sequel, but it's very much like, this is just the way of the world. Like, you can't win them all.
Yeah, it's
And
dark and
it's
twisted.
Or
very
even when
dark.
you win,
Even when you win, you
there's
lose.
consequences.
Yeah. And so I think that's, for me, this week at least, was the one that stood out to me the most.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I hate to pick one of my own, but I'm going to choose the scene from RoboCop, just because, like, in a movie that is considered to just be, like, a campy, satirical 80s shooter action movie, it's, like, it's got, like, that's just a super touching, like, deep, complex moment where it's just kind of like you realize, like, yeah, this guy isn't just, like, it's not just about a robot cop cyborg guy, like, fighting crime, like, it's about, like, humanity and justice and, like, yeah, I don't know what else I can say that I didn't already say about it.
no, you're fine. All we learned today was that Carter's the only non-selfish one.
Oh,
Yeah, I appreciate you.
so,
Like,
yeah.
like I'm sorry, I would have chosen other movies, except I just have different jaw-dropping moments for
Yeah.
these movies.
I should say if I didn't pick my own, I probably would have gone with the Judge Doom one. I like that one a lot.
So
It's a solid
that
one,
was a really
too.
good one. So this week, we have to, as always, pick the weakest link.
Wait a second, Carter. I have a jaw-dropping moment.
What?
This week is a double elimination.
I did not see that coming.
What?
We didn't plan for this at all.
Nope. No plan. This is totally new information.
So this week, the way it's going to work
I'm pissed.
is
boy.
voting. We'll vote one round of our first
Elimination.
elimination, and then we'll do a second
We'll do a
round
second
of
round.
elimination.
Yep.
That way it's just easier to count up who the losers are. But that does make it harder if there's a 3-1 split. You think you
true.
maybe could have inched one out, but no.
Phoenix, you okay?
This is stressful.
This is quite stressful, but
This is one I didn't want a double elimination on.
I hate this game.
I'll go first.
Oh my gosh.
Carter's ready to just kill.
I am ready. I'm ready to rip the Band-Aid off, man. Big Lebowski. This is its week. We had its number. We knew it was coming. This is it. Big Lebowski.
I too vote for the Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski. I knew it was coming this week.
I mean,
It just
in this conversation, you could feel it. You're
Yeah,
like, it
that
is
was the
bizarre.
black sheep in
I
the-
feel like Brett on the last episode, just knowing that
Yeah.
we were talking about it, and I was like, there are moments to pick, and I don't know if the dream sequence would have even been that much better. Like, it's just because it's so nihilistic. There's
Yeah.
nothing that. I mean, it has this attitude of nothing really matters, and so when nothing matters, your emotions don't matter, and that's.
I feel like you could have chosen the scene where you see Bunny driving and the camera pans down to her toe and you see that it's still there. I feel like you could have chosen that moment.
Ooh.
That I feel like, because that for me, that's the jaw dropping moment of that
Oh,
movie
is
where it's
it?
like, oh damn, like who would have thought there would have been intrigue and twists in this movie about nothingness?
Yeah.
So I feel like that would have that
Yeah.
might have helped you if you tried arguing that.
I
But
thought
hey,
about that.
like,
I thought about dream
again,
sequence.
I'm
Walter
not-
pulling the gun out in the bowling alley.
Oh my! Yeah, you could have done that too. Like, am I the only one? Like there.
It's
like,
a shame we don't get to talk about dialogue with this movie, but
like you chose a good
I
moment,
know.
but I feel like there were some stronger
Oh
moments.
man, it fought for weeks.
Farewell to
But
the
golly.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about damn time.
Yeah,
Sorry, I've just been
this is-
dumping on this movie for 2
I know,
weeks
I like
now.
this movie.
Like, I love this movie.
I'm
It's
gonna
so
go cry
good,
and watch The Big
but
Lebowski tonight.
I'm just like, it's so bizarre because it is such a good movie, and yet it has
It's
been
like,
so like
it's got so many problems.
But yeah, but
We've
it's
been
been
dissecting
we're
it.
like, it's such a good movie, but it's like not.
But it's not a good movie.
But
It's not even that
so
it's not a
good.
good movie. It's just not conventional.
Yeah, it's an unconventional
Yeah,
movie, which makes it
that's-
difficult to argue.
Yeah, to
with.
talk about it here.
Yeah,
It's its week. It'll be a fan favorite. It'll come back on one of those seasons of a reality show where it's like fan favorites.
yeah.
This is why the double elimination's so scary. Is
Because
because we
now
we
we
have to
gotta
pick
choose a
one.
different one.
That was good. We all agreed we liked all the other ones.
So
I think I have an idea
goodness.
of what I want to pick, but I'll let someone else.
No,
start.
you go
I-
first again.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, you got an idea.
No,
Okay, I have an idea.
I hate this.
Here's what I'm gonna say, man. Here's what I'm gonna say.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if everyone else is
Uh-oh.
gonna agree, and I don't want you to think I'm shitting on you, Robbie.
Oh.
But
week.
Uh-oh.
looking at all these other films, they're all so good, but the weakest to me is the Iron Man one. Like, I think there are other moments in the movie that are more jaw-dropping than when he comes out of the cave. That's kind of where I'm at.
Damn, a hush. You could feel the. You could cut the
Damn,
tension with
but-
a knife in this room.
okay,
This
keep it
is-
going.
This is.
We'll talk about it if it,
This is the-
I haven't decided yet. I'm sorry, I can't make a call at this exact moment in time. Like, I need another minute to think about it.
yeah.
So I'm Phoenix. I'm gonna pass it over to you.
You pass it to me?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm looking and I'm thinking I can't make a decision right now.
I mean,
I'm so sorry.
no, I'll take it. This is a fucking film fracas right here. This is
Yeah.
it's tense now.
This is
It's-
playing the fracas.
Yeah, it is. It is. We're getting to the point where this is gonna start to hurt to eliminate
Right.
these.
It's
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, it's gonna get real now. But
well, especially if we end up with
Goodness.
everybody but Phoenix has lost. I know we said at the beginning of the show that it's
think-
not about your team
Yeah.
winning or whatever, but
But
there's a little bit of personal
yeah.
I agree with that. I think it's just the luck of the topics we've been drawing because my films have flaws, but
Yeah.
we're getting
Well,
good.
we'll
I'm
get to
getting-
those
we're
later.
getting- we're gonna get to them. I think if I'm being honest, I gotta agree with Carter and vote out Iron Man because I named in the process of talking about it, I named two more that I would have picked, and not to say that your pick was wrong because I do like that action scene. I think that when you're looking at jaw-dropping moments, I think, especially when you put it in consideration to the time frame of when it came out, I would have gone with some other things. And there's other movies here that I also would have picked other moments for, but that one is the most that I think if I had to kind of change someone's moment, I think it would go with the Iron Man one the most. So for that reason, even though I do like the action scene a lot, I'm voting Iron Man off the moon.
all right.
Off of the moon.
All right, Brett, do
All
you
right,
have your-
I've made my decision as much as it pains me. I'm gonna go with my gut on this one, and I'm actually gonna vote for The Shining because it's an iconic moment, but I feel like we already know he's gone crazy. We already know he's trying to kill his family. And it's just kind of, I feel like just at that point, it's more not exactly falling action, but you see the typewriter and it's like, oh damn, he has lost his mind. He's gone completely crazy, and he's going to kill Wendy there in the library, but she manages to stop him. And then after that, it's kind of okay, he's not going to get more crazy. He's trying to kill them. I was thinking Silence of the Lambs, but you guys made such good arguments for how it just brings everything full circle. It brings down a really good moment, and it's okay, we won, but we didn't win completely. And so I feel like just that moment from The Shining is not as strong as some of the other moments. So my vote is for The Shining.
That's fair. All right, Robbie.
My jaw dropped when Brett said The Shining because I'm going to split the vote here. I was also going to pick The Shining.
Son of a bitch.
So I got to say, I agree with Brett. There's other moments that make my jaw drop. And at this point, not to say that The Shining is a normal horror film by any stretch of the imagination, but Here's Johnny happens at a moment where kind of the final chase of your horror movie has begun. And it's where typically you'd have a big jump scare or something. Maybe even the first time you see your ghost or your demon in full view for the first time, but it's still after everything's, it's in your final chase. It's in your final bit of the movie there. And I don't think it's, it can't get worse from that point. But I think when you discover that Jack is batshit crazy, I just think it's it dropped my jaw a little bit more.
Carter does not look like he agrees.
Well, I'm thinking about it. So, in the event of a tie,
What happens?
well, we can
What
either go
happens?
for a second round of discussion and see if anyone's vote changes, or we can go and consult an impartial fifth judge. What do y'all want to do?
I feel like we should just keep it here.
I think we just need to keep it here because
Yeah.
what do? We stop and we go upstairs and talk to friend of the podcast, Austin Sesson.
We could, but yeah, I think we ought to just. I think an argument can be made, and we can discuss which one. Someone can budge. It's flexible.
I think what needs to happen is
The issue is
we have to.
Phoenix and I both chose The Shining and Iron Man as our tops.
Yeah.
So this really needs to go between the two of you.
I
That's true.
think we can give our chance to defend our moment one more time,
Yeah,
and
okay.
then
Yeah.
I think this comes down to you two
two of
because
us?
we're not. I don't think
boy.
we're gonna budge on our.
Right.
Oh boy.
Okay.
All right. Would you like to go first?
Sure. The reason that I think that Iron Man has the better of the two moments is, once again, I told you guys to think about the first time you saw this, whether it was in a theater with your friends in 2008, on Hulu 2 weeks ago, but the moment where you're introduced to Tony Stark and you're still kind of in your head like, why do I care about an Iron Man movie? And you see this moment, you see him walk out of the cave, you see him just go crazy on these people in a suit he made in this cave from scrap metal.
Tony Stark built this while he was living in a cave.
He built it while he was living in a cave.
with a box of scrap.
And just the triumph you feel in that moment and the excitement that it builds for this character of Iron Man and what's to come. And yeah, there's some other jaw-dropping moments in the movie. There's some stuff that comes later that, really progresses the story along more, but I think it really punctuates this prologue to Tony's story, and it's so triumphant, and it's just it's a fuck yeah, let's go moment. And that's why I think it's better. Can I argue against The Shining, or is that...
We'll have Phoenix, and then
Yeah. Then we'll
discuss.
defend then attack.
All right.
defend the attack?
I just want to say right now that I propose that the tiebreaker be called the Film Fracas Face Off.
Yes.
And that is trademarked now, just as me saying it. So this is officially a Film Fracas Face Off first, and I want to get it
So many F's.
For the first time?
for the first time.
Our description of the show is four friends fighting for film.
Yeah, and finally we have a Film Fracas Face Off
Four friends and
first.
film fanatics fighting about film.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so now for my defense. Okay. The moment in The Shining with Here's Johnny is, I think, just so terrifying and so gripping to watch because it's like I said, it's all of the power of the hotel has finally taken over, and we've lost the father of this person, and we're now seeing such a sadistic person that is so different from what we saw before, so gone in his demeanor and what he's doing, just not hammering but swinging his axe straight into the door with his mother and son in the opposite room, and we're really just scared for their life. Where the face that he has that Jack Nicholson gives for Jack Torrance is just so menacing and sticks with you, and it's you remember, you walk away just remembering the terror from that hit. It's so visceral and so real, and it's so I keep saying it, but it's so iconic. It stays with you. It stayed with us for as long as it's been, and you could still see the axe swinging into the door, and you get real terrified because you can feel that there's a possibility he's going to kill his family, and it's a true lost it moment. This is the climax. Now that the dad can't be saved, now they need to just run, and this is this is where you can really see that come into fruition. Is like they're dead at this point. Like he's out of control. And I just think when you're watching it, you just feel such like a fear for this family, and like you just I'm rambling, but you see like a terror in Jack Torrance, and it's so good. It's just you're grabbing your seat. You're just like, oh my god, this is intense. And I think it's just great. I think it's a great moment.
All right, Brett, can I explain to you kind of my mindset on it?
You can.
And my method of how I'm judging is we've heard these secondary arguments, and if we need to, again, we can go back for another round.
I'm gonna hold Robbie's hand while it's going on.
There's only one rose left to give.
There's not even a rose.
So
It's a dagger.
here's my train of thought with it. So, looking at the two movies, all right, look at The Shining. The Shining, we're pretty much at the typewriter moment, or
the axe moment.
Iron Man, we have the cave moment. We have when he puts on the initials. When he puts on like the finished suit. We have the I am Iron Man. We have the Obadiah Stane turn. And to me, it's like Iron Man has more moments that could arguably be better than the coming out of the cave moment than The Shining does for the axe moment. Because the axe moment and the typewriter moment, to me, are kind of like, it could go either way, and so it almost cancels out. Whereas Iron Man, there are like, I would argue put the I am Iron moment at the end, or the Obadiah Stane twist over, or even when he has the finished suit. And I could almost argue all of those over when he comes out of the cave. And that's kind of where my mental state was with that.
Okay, like I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, you're not wrong. Like, yeah, there are a lot of other moments in Iron Man, but I feel like but I do feel like that is, like, the only moment in Iron Man I would put over that sequence and that scene would be like Obadiah, like, quote, killing Tony, unquote. Just because, like, yeah, because it is kind of just like, as Robbie has said, like, it's just like, it's such a good, just like pumped up scene. Like, for all the people that were like, why should I care about Iron Man? It's like, this is why you should care about Iron Man. And then, like, even for like the people like me that were kind of like, oh, like, yeah, sure, I'm down for an Iron Man movie. Even then, it's kind of like, oh yeah, like, there's the suit. Like, that's the first suit coming into action. So I feel like that works for both sides of the crowd. Whereas, like, with The Shining, Phoenix said, like, the axe scene is where you see it's like, oh yeah, he's been taken over. Except I feel like, as I've said, like, the typewriter scene already tells you and already shows you that he has been taken over. And I argue in a much more twisted way, because it's kind of like, yeah, horror movie, somebody turns evil, they try to kill their friends or their loved ones, but you never see, oh, like, this person's turning evil, like, so evil that, like, it's actually taken over their mind, that they've gone and just, like, typed up this super kind of, like, just messed up, like, manifesto of the same few words in just all these crazy different twisted patterns on a hand typewriter that they had to make the conscious effort to type it up, slide it over, take out the next page, put the next one in, rack it up, and then just do that same thing, like, for God knows how long. And I feel like that shows that Jack is so much more twisted than the axe scene. And also, again, I hate to use anecdotal evidence for my argument, but it's like the first time I watched the scene, I was just like, for like the axe scene and the Here's Johnny, I was just kind of waiting for that to happen. So I'm like, oh, this is where that movie comes from. I'm like, oh, when's that going to happen? Watch the movie, I'm kind of like, oh, there it is. That kind of thing, rather than being like, oh my God, he's like trying to kill them. It's kind of like, yeah, he's gone crazy. I know that. So of course he's going to try to kill them. And then seeing them, like, okay, that's just the bad guy coming after the good guy at that point. And so, like, yes, in Iron Man, there are more moments that, like, you could say are, like, ahead of it. But I feel like in The Shining, the difference between them is, like, a lot greater than in Iron Man.
See, I don't necessarily think they are, because they very much work together. Because it's essentially, when you see the typewriter, it's the twist that Jack is evil, or that he's at least gone crazy, And then with the axe, that's the culmination and like physical representation of him becoming evil. That's his like, you see his mental turn with that, and then you see his like actual turn when he starts swinging the axe.
Except you also get that in the library when he starts like when he's like, "Oh, hi Wendy, like what do you think?" And then she's like, "Stay away from me." He's like, "Just give me the bat, Wendy. Like, just give me the bat." And that whole scene right there, that also shows.
I mean, it does, but it all still like it culminates in the axe moment. Like that's like Phoenix said, the climax of that moment. So they really kind of serve each other, I think, which doesn't make their difference quite as stark because one feeds into the other.
Well, at this point,
Well, then you're talking about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. You know, Neil feeds into, you know, taking the cup. Like everything in a movie builds to these moments. Talking about these moments individually.
Yeah, and if I could also, I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to jump in or whatever, but if I could also add, you brought up how like it's so popular that like you're waiting for the axe thing. I would like to go off of Robbie saying like go back to when like we're thinking about this time. Like he's saying go back to 2008 before you saw the fight scene. Whenever I watched Iron Man, I expected like a superhero to shoot up people or the superhero to fight bad guys. Like that was not surprising to me. And so when it happened, I was like, yeah, this is an action scene. It's a good action scene. But I didn't necessarily like lose my mind over it because I kind of expected superheroes to fight bad guys in this movie about superheroes fighting bad guys. So that's my 2 cents. You were saying that you were expecting the Here's Johnny thing. I was kind of expecting a fight scene in this movie.
So then like at that point, it's just entirely subjective.
I feel like you have to go into the actual like moment and how it takes you from it, which it goes into subjectivity.
And now, I mean, we're gonna sit here and talk in circles for a while now.
Yeah.
So
Don't know if
at this
anyone wants to
point,
budge, or we could go with that fifth member and get that fifth tiebreaker. If y'all seem pretty set on where y'all are.
I'm just thinking like a fifth member would just be like, oh yeah, that scene from The Shining because that's so iconic, and just like
not necessarily. I mean, we could present our cases to them.
I guess, I suppose.
Or if you and I could come to a consensus about a completely different movie.
How would that help?
Let's do a third round of voting. What would your these two aside? What would your next pick
be besides these two?
Man, I could barely come up with a first pick. I don't know what my second pick would be off the top of my head. Oh boy.
So, at this point, we'll be right back.
On with the show.
Back to Film Fracas. We have consulted a totally impartial, non-biased fifth judge and friend of the podcast, Austin Zesson. We explained all of our arguments to him off tape, and he came to the conclusion that The Shining is just not as jaw-dropping of a moment as the scene from Iron Man. I'm personally very happy. Phoenix, I'll let you go ahead and give your...
I'm sad about it. When we announced the double elimination thing, I thought it was possible. I'm sad because I do like that scene a lot, and I like that movie a lot, and I thought it would last longer than it has, but I mean that's just the way it goes with this podcast. So
that's the thing.
Shining's gone.
We lost two fairly iconic films this month.
It was my best moment that I picked when we went around saying which was your personal best. This was mine, and now it's voted off. Now it's because it wasn't anyone else, or it wasn't the other two's.
What was, just real quick? What was Austin's reasoning?
Austin reasoned that because he just looked at the films holistically, said, I'm not going to consider the fact that there are better moments. I'm going to talk about these two moments individually, and just decided that he liked.
Yeah, he said The Shining is more of a slow burn, whereas with Iron Man, the jump from being from going from where it was to like the high tense action is like more of a jaw dropping feeling than it is with The Shining, where it just kind of slowly gets to that moment. Yeah. Okay. And that was his reasoning for selecting Iron Man.
Cool.
Well,
which is fair.
That has it.
That is fair.
At the moment, at this point in the season, all of us are down to two films.
We've all taken shots.
Oh boy.
We're all hit. No one is safe.
No one is safe.
Yeah. Today has proven that the show can be crazy sometimes.
It can be pretty tense.
Be crazy.
Yeah.
So let's real quick.
Fracas.
I like how opposite things have seemed. Where, I mean, we start with story, and we eliminated like one of like the most popular stories, and now we've started with moments, and eliminated one of the most iconic moments.
That's true.
It's crazy.
It's interesting. It's interesting to like the arguments for these things.
Yeah. So, let's real quick wrap up. Give our recommendations of the week.
Recommendations and social handles.
Social handles.
Go
So
for
this week I am recommending. Oh, you know what? Fuck it, y'all. If you've never seen the show Boston Legal. It's actually so
God
good.
damn it.
I think it's
God damn it.
I think it's almost impossible actually to find aside from just buying the DVD sets and watching it. But that show is so good, and I highly recommend it to anyone who has not seen it. David E. Kelly.
Boston Legal
It's-
is good, actually.
It is actually good. So that's my recommendation. You can follow me on Twitter at CASpilliards. Like spell something New York and add an S.
I already lost the shiny. You can't do this to me.
Brett Johnson.
All right, okay. I am going to recommend I think it's an 80s flick, but directed by Joe Dante, the horror movie called The Howling. It's got one of the best opening credit sequences that I've seen in a very long time. It just made me feel very uneasy, and just it's a werewolf story. I really enjoyed it. It's good 80s B-list horror. You can find me on Snapchat, Brett JHNSN1. See my slice of life stories.
All right, this is Phoenix. My Twitter handle is @BombAssPhoenix. My recommendation, a little thrown off by this, but I'll recommend. I just saw Snatch the other day, so if you haven't seen the movie Snatch, check it out. It's a nice fun romp. Fun, a lot of British people talking real ridiculous, but it's also really fun. So check it out.
And I, of course, am Robbie DeShazer at Robbie_DeShazer on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to go ahead and recommend Icarus, the Netflix documentary about doping in the Olympics. It goes so many places you don't expect it to go.
Yeah,
It starts somewhere and it ends up a totally different place. Nominated for Best Documentary Feature at the Oscars. We'll see how it does. This is, of course, coming out after the
Oscars.
Oh, well, whatever.
Anyway, thanks for listening. This has been Film Fracas. We will see you next week.
All right.
Stay tuned.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Film Fracas. We know there are a lot of shows on the web, and we are so glad you took the time to listen to ours. Thank you to Brett Johnson, Carter Spilliards, and Phoenix Zarola for helping to write and produce each episode of the show. There's no team behind Film Fracas, it's just us. So consider giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really does help get the word out. You can follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Film Fracas. Once again, thanks for listening, and we can't wait for you to hear the next episode.